Hello friends, how are you? I hope all of you are doing really good. Welcome to Economics of Finance Excellency batch. So if you are new to the channel, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel and press the like button and share with all your friends. Okay, so what now we have been discussing about? We have been discussing about the government intervention to correct the market failures, right? So as I told you in the last lecture that government intervention is required, and without it the market forces of demand and supply cannot automatically adjust to remove the market failures, right? If you want to correct the market failures, you obviously need the government intervention. If you leave everything to the market forces of demand and supply, they might not be able to adjust in such a way that they are able to correct the market failures. Now, how the government is intervening? The government intervenes in the way by correcting one by one the reasons for the market failure, right? So in the last lecture, we discussed about the government intervention to correct the market failure, market power, right? Then we discussed about the government intervention in case of externalities, that how to reduce the negative externalities and how to increase the positive externalities. This all we have discussed. Now in this lecture we are going to move further with the government intervention in case of merit goods, right? So first you need to understand what are the merit goods. Merit goods are those goods which are socially desirable and involve the substantial positive externalities in their consumption. So merit goods are those goods which are good for the society. We call it as socially desirable, right? Society wants such goods and they involve the substantial positive externalities in their consumption. For example, education, healthcare, welfare services, housing, public libraries, museums, and public parks. Right? So all these things are what? All these things are good for the society, good for the public. That is why we call it as socially desirable and involve the substantial positive externalities. So merit goods are rivalrous. So what is rivalrous goods? We have already studied in the last lecture when we were discussing about the public goods. When are the goods rivalrous? The rivalrous is that the consumption by one person will reduce the consumption of the other person. Now, these goods might not be 100% rivalrous, but they will be. Sir, how? Let's talk about the education sector. Now, let's say there are limited seats in a particular college. If one student gets that seat, obviously the other student will not be able to get that seat. The consumption by one person will reduce the usage of the consumption by another person. Now, these goods are excludable also. That means you have to pay for this, right? Anyone who is not ready to pay for these goods, he or she can be excluded from the use of the merit goods. Limited in supply. For example, the seats in the education sector, they are limited in the supply, and that is what makes them rivalrous. The limited in supply and rivalrous, they are interlinked, sir. They are interlinked. If they are limited in supply, then it will become rivalrous. Limited in supply means the one person who is using it, the another person, for the another person, the quantity will be less available, right? And involve the extra marginal cost for supplying to the additional users. That if you want to supply the additional users also, you need to incur the extra cost for that. Okay, now we need to understand why there is a need for government intervention in case of merit goods. Now, although these are socially desirable goods, right, and they should be manufactured, but if left to the only private players, they will not be, producing the required quantities. Why? Sir, because these goods are not based on the profit motive. These goods are based on the societal motive, the society's benefit motive. That is why. Okay, that's what he's writing. He says that in free market, the merit goods are likely to be underproduced or underconsumed, which reduces the social welfare, right? Why the government is intervening? The sole purpose of the government is the social welfare. And he says that if these merit goods are left only to the private players, then these goods might be underproduced. Or if the people are not having the right information about the availability of merit goods, then these goods might be underconsumed also. Certain merit goods like health and education should be provided free of cost on the basis of the need rather than individuals' ability to pay. He says some of the things, some of the basic needs are there of health and education. That is why they say that the education up to the age of 14 years, the government has been making policies regarding that should be free and should be provided to, every boy and every girl. Everybody has the right to education. So if it is to be provided free of cost, will the private players provide it? No, sir. They will not be providing it because simply of the profit motive, right? So these will be, but it is not like that none of them will be providing, but these will be underproduced. Some will be working with that motive, with that cause, but everybody won't be working with that particular cause. So that will result in the underproduction of these particular goods and services, right? Of these merit goods which are required. Then is the information failure. One of the reasons market failure is widely prevalent with the merit good, which hinders the individuals from acting in their best interest. That is what I told you, due to the inaccurate or the unavailability of the right information. The people might not be going to take the COVID vaccines, right? The people might not be going for the right education, that what should be there, where it is available, whether it is available. Now most of the poor people, they don't have the knowledge about the various government schemes which say that the education should be provided free of cost. And in the process, what happened? Those people, those illiterate people, or those poor people, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the resources, and as such their children have to suffer because they don't get the right education, right? Otherwise, there are various government schemes which mandate that there should be an education and it should be free of cost to such people up till the particular age, isn't it? So there may be funds also which are available for the education, for healthcare services, which most of the people are not aware about because the information doesn't reach them. And that is one of the reasons that creates the market failures. Need for merit goods is uncertain, and hence the markets may fail to provide when they are needed the most. He says, identifying the need for the merit goods with the certainty is very, very difficult. So these markets fail to provide. The need might be more during the April season, might be less during the September season, right? So accordingly, that is quite an uncertain situation. So accordingly, the markets cannot identify when the need is there and they will not be able to meet those demands. Now he says, forms of government intervention, that what are the various ways in which the government intervenes to provide these merit goods. These merit goods are for the social welfare, they are socially desirable, so government intervention is required. How the government may intervene in such cases? The first is regulation. The government can regulate the private activities in the certain sectors. For example, the manner in which the education is imparted in the private schools is regulated by the government, framing the curriculum, right, and deciding that at what standard, what is the education that is to be provided. Even if it is being provided in the private schools, the governance is by the government, right? The framework is being set by the government. That is known as regulation, that regulating the private sector, that how they should be behaving, how they should be acting, that is done by the government. Standards. The government can set the standards and issue the mandates that the individuals must comply. For example, the purchase of insurance policy can be made compulsory. Now, insurance policy is what? Insurance policy is a merit good. That is a socially desirable good. Every member of the society must be having the insurance policy. So government can set the standards and issue the mandates that individuals must be having the insurance policies. Otherwise, there can be penalties, or otherwise they might not be having the access to certain healthcare activities. So all those things can be there. Legislation, the government can set the legally binding rules. For example, the use of helmet and seat belts is compulsory by law. Now, helmet is what? It is a socially desirable product. It is a socially desirable good. It is a merit good. So the government can, legally bind us that you have to buy the merit good, right, for your safety. Subsidies. The merit goods may be provided free of cost, 100% subsidy, or at the subsidized rates to enhance their consumption. As I told you about the education part, right? Direct government provision. The government produces the merit goods, leading to the large economies of scale and productive efficiency, apart from generating the substantial positive externalities. Now, the government says if the private players are not able to meet all the demand which of the merit goods, then we will directly enter into the market. We will provide the merit goods at the subsidized rates or at the 100% subsidy also, that is free of cost. So the government can directly manufacture the merit goods for the social welfare. Supplementing the market provisions. The government can increase the consumption of the merit goods by purchasing them from the open market and supply them at a free or subsidized rates to the consumer. So what government can do is government says, okay, otherwise in the market these goods are available at a higher prices. Government will buy those goods from the open market, then provide it to the right consumer at the subsidized rates. Right, directly providing the subsidies. Now one way is that the government is directly providing the subsidies to the producers and ask them to reduce the rate. Another way is the producers might not use that subsidy to reduce the rate. If the subsidy is 100 rupees being provided by the government, the manufacturer or the producer might reduce the rate by 30 or 40 rupees and keep the rest of the money in his or her pocket. Right. So government says, instead of providing the subsidy this way, we will buy the product from the open market and provide it to the consumer, to the end consumer at the subsidized rates. So who is the ultimate beneficiary? The consumer is the beneficiary, and that will lead to social welfare. Clear? I hope this much is clear to you, that how the government intervenes by regulation, by standards, by legislation, by subsidies, by direct government provision, or supplementing the market provision. Then he says, what are the effects of the direct provision of merit goods by the government? Now, if the government directly provides the merit goods, what is the direct impact of that? Besides generating the extensive positive externalities, obviously more and more merit goods will be available in the market that will lead to social welfare and that will generate the positive externalities. That is absolutely correct. The government provision also enables to reap the economies of scale and thereby enhance the productive efficiency. When the government is also involved in that, the goods are being manufactured at the large scale, and when the goods are being manufactured at the large scale, the cost cutting can be there. That leads to, that is known as economies of scale, that you are manufacturing at a large scale. At the large scale, you can make that product really cost effective. You can make it economical for the consumer, enhance the productive efficiency, and the government might use its own tools, own resources, which can lead to economies of scale. Okay, so in this diagram, what he's saying, in the free market, the people demand. Now, if it is the free market, right, the people are demanding this quantity, basically, OQ, right? Level of healthcare, when the merit goods are provided free of cost. Now, when the government enters the market, the government provides the goods at the subsidized rates or at free of cost, then what will happen? Obviously, the demand will increase, right? Now, the people will be demanding this part. Clear? The quantity demanded rises exponentially. In the diagram, the quantity equals OD, which far exceeds the quantity supplied when the government provides the healthcare for free. Obviously, sir, if you have a vaccination which is costing 9,000 rupees, let's say there is a vaccination of a child which is costing 9,000 rupees. Only a few people who can afford that 9,000 rupees, they will be demanding that vaccination, right? That demand will be this demand. Now, if the government says that we are ready to provide that vaccination at just 1,000 rupees, now what will happen? Obviously, more and more people will be interested in that vaccination now. That vaccination is obviously important, but the only problem was at 9,000, the people were not able to afford it. Now, with the government being providing this at the subsidized rates, this demand will increase. Right? Now, more and more people can afford it. Or if the government provides it free of cost, the demand will further increase. Clear? So this is the impact of the government directly providing the merit goods. So this was the government intervention in case of merit goods. Now, if you have the merit goods, there are the other type of goods also, which is known as in case of demerit goods, and how the government intervention plays in case of demerit goods. What are the demerit goods? We need to understand that. So demerit goods are the goods which are socially undesirable and involve the negative externalities in their consumption. Example, alcohol, cigarettes, tobacco. These are not socially desirable. The society must not be having these goods, right? Which is not in the favor of the societal welfare. That is known as socially undesirable goods and involve the negative externalities. All goods with negative externalities are not necessarily demerit goods. He says all the goods with the negative externality are not necessarily demerit goods, are not necessarily socially undesirable. The one, the action of one person might be having the negative impact on the another person, but it is not necessarily the demerit good. For example, there are some children in the class, they are making a lot of noise, right? Now that is what? That is a negative externality, but it doesn't mean that education is a demerit good. Clear? So that is why he says all goods with negative externalities are not necessarily demerit goods, but all the demerit goods will create the negative externality, right? In case of demerit goods, the social cost is more than the private cost because of the presence of negative externalities. Need for government intervention. In the free market, the demerit goods are likely to be overproduced. Obviously, why? Because the companies, if more and more people will be consuming this alcohol, cigarette, tobacco, the companies have huge margin in those demerit goods. And if the people are going to buy the demerit goods, then these companies are going to enjoy the huge margins, and they are expected to be overproduced because if left to the free market, the free markets are not interested in the social welfare. Their first and the primary motive is what? The profit making, right? And obviously the over consumed also causing the misallocation of the society's scarce resources. Overproduced, overconsumption, obviously there will be misallocation of the resources. Now, further we say that the consumers overvalue the demerit goods because of the imperfect information, and they are not the best judge of the welfare with respect to such goods. Right now, we go to the parties, people drink alcohol, people have the cigarettes because they overvalue. They think that this is really fun, right? We really fit into the society. So for all these reasons, they do not have the right information that what is the actual damage these products are doing to the body. People are not aware of that, fully aware of that, and that is why they overvalue the demerit goods. Now, the forms of government intervention, how the government intervenes in case of the demerit goods. Complete prohibition, as we have already done about the negative externalities direct method, that completely banning the certain products which are extremely hazardous, like the harmful drugs can be there, cigarettes, alcohol can be there. Persuasion. Persuasion means the negative advertising campaigns which emphasize the dangers associated with the consumption of demerit goods. He says there should be a rigorous advertisements that should reach the generations, especially the young generations, right, who are really addicted to such drugs and alcohol. We have seen in the past few years. So the advertisement needs to be there that should hit the mind of the generation that these products are not good for you. We should be persuading them through the right means, through the social media, through advertisements in the social media and all those things. No promotion, prohibiting the advertisement or the promotion of the demerit goods. The government says that the demerit goods should not be promoted on the social medias, on televisions, anywhere. The promotion or the advertisement should not be there of the drugs, alcohol and all those things, right? Regulatory controls can be there, imposing the regulations to limit the access to the demerit goods to vulnerable groups like the children and adolescents, right? Like anybody can't go and buy the alcohol, anybody can't go and buy the cigarettes. A child of let's say 14-15 years, he is exposed to the age is really vulnerable, and he is exposed to the social media these days. So he can go to the market and ask for the cigarette because he feels that it is really fun in the society. But the government says there should be strict regulations. The person who is selling the cigarette, he should not be giving it to that particular person, otherwise he will get penalized. High taxes, imposing the extremely high taxes on the production or the purchase of demerit goods. For example, GST at 28% plus cess on aerated drinks, luxury cars, etc. Right? So anything which is against the social welfare, which is hazardous to the health can be there, which is hazardous to the society welfare can be there. So he says, the government says we will tax it at a very high rate so that it is not easily accessible to each and everyone. Price controls can be there, setting the minimum price below which these goods cannot be traded to reduce the consumption of goods. That on one hand we say we are imposing the taxes to increase the prices. On the other hand, if the person tries to reduce the prices a lot, if the person tries to reduce the prices that we should be selling at free of cost or at a very minimal price so that it is easily accessible to everyone, the government says no, we will set the minimum price below which these goods cannot be traded, or to reduce the consumption of such goods, right? So he says in the free market, the equilibrium is achieved at point B. This is the equilibrium level, right, where the private benefit is there, and then MSC, social cost, is equal to the private cost, where the MPC, private cost, is equal to private benefit, right? At this point, the output of OQ is consumed, which is more than socially optimal output. So further he says the shaded area ABC represents the deadweight loss arising from the overconsumption, right? So this is the deadweight loss area. If the government determines the minimum price of OP1, now the government says that you cannot charge anything and everything, right? So this is the original price being charged. Now the government increases this price. The government says, no, you can't charge this price. You have to charge OP1, right? Now what will happen, sir? The quantity consumed reduces to OQ1. Now the quantity consumed will come down to this price, right? The quantity will be less consumed due to the increase in the prices. The new level of consumption, that is OQ1, is socially optimal, and here the marginal social benefit is equal to marginal social cost, right? Social benefit is equal to marginal social cost here. This is the new level, okay? This is how, at this price, this is how it will be determined. The problem with this method is that the higher prices may not lead to reduction in the consumption if the demerit good has the inelastic demand. Inelastic demand means if the demand is not dependent upon the prices, then even the increase in the prices will not lead to reduction in the consumption. That is one of the major problems here, right? The sellers can shift the tax burden to the consumers in the form of higher prices. The government intervention now, okay, so this was about the merit and the demerit goods. Now quickly we will go through the government intervention in case of public goods. We have already discussed about the public goods. So the public goods are non-excludable and are prone to the problem of free riders, which we have already studied in the last lecture, free rider problem. In such cases, the markets are unlikely to be established. Obviously, sir, the markets will say that why are we going to provide everything free of cost? Why we should be providing that? No, we are not going to provide everything free of cost. If anything is to be provided, if it is a public good, we will not manufacture it, right? Let anybody else do the honors. And hence they should be directly provided by the government. So that is what the free market players, they say that if these are the free goods, let the government provide them. Why we should be providing those goods, right? So they are not really interested in providing these goods. Clear? Now he says for the pure public goods are which goods? Non-rivalrous and non-excludable. That means the entry fees cannot be charged. You cannot charge anything. Direct provision thereof by the government through the use of the general government tax revenue is the only option to correct the market failure. So such goods which are non-rivalrous, which are non-excludable, that is, you cannot ask for the payment of such goods. He says if the government wants to provide such goods, then the government will have to use its own funds. Own funds means from the revenue, from its own government revenue, they need to use these funds, right? For the public goods where the entry fee can be charged, that is excludable public goods, the government can itself provide such goods and charge entry fee. Where the entry fees can be charged, there the government can provide, self-provide the goods and charge a nominal fee, or grant licenses to the private firm to build and operate a public good facility, but stipulate the maximum entry fee. It cannot be left totally to the private players that we are giving you the permit to run this place, you can charge anything. No, right? They say this is a public utility good, this is a public utility place. Okay, we are giving you the contract. The government says to the private players, we are giving you the contract, but at the same time, we are setting, the maximum fee that you can charge. You cannot charge beyond that. And monitor the functioning of such private firms. For strategic reasons, certain public goods are produced only by the government, right? For the safety and strategic reasons, there are certain public goods which are only and only exclusively being manufactured by the government. That is atomic energy, nuclear power, securities at the airports. Because if this is given to the free markets, then, some lapses can be there, the dangers can be there. So that is why there are few areas which are exclusively tackled by the government, right? So this was the government intervention in case of public goods, that because of the free rider problem, the free market is not ready to manufacture, not ready to cater to these goods. That is why the government will intervene in this case. Right, sir. So in this lecture, we have done the merit goods, we have done the demerit goods, and the government intervention in case of public goods. Clear? The next is, we'll be doing it in the next lecture. Now the price intervention, that is the non-market pricing, price ceiling, price floor is there, price ceiling is there. Then information failure, how to correct it with the government intervention, then equitable distribution and the government failures. So very small topic. Easy topics are going to be there in the next lecture, and we will be completing this particular chapter number 5, that is the government intervention, right? So see you guys in the next lecture. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy, keep studying, keep sharing. Thank you so much.